The Regent's response came. "Third Moon's orbital station. This must be a fabrication," Morris Ishtal proclaimed, his outrage and disbelief palpable through the screen. "My Lord Regent, allow my technicians and agents to dissect the videos and audio. They will find the truth." Cornelius closed his eyes for a brief moment to consider Morris's proposition, but almost instantly discarded it. Opening his eyes, he saw the faces of his allies waiting for his answer. Rodrigo Wonder, Tamron Keiston, and Morris Ishtal had been briefed, while Hadrian Tian had seen the messages and evidence Count Gino Ference had been so kind to share with him firsthand. Only Deborah Cinto was yet to answer his call. He could only imagine the explosive reaction the nasty woman would detonate in the privacy of her palace. Her absence, for the moment, was more than justified given what had happened. "There will be no need, Morris," Cornelius countered softly, his voice measured and collected, forever calm, focused, and unshakable. His expression never reflected doubt or unease. Like a stalwart hammer, he would not bend, and he would remain firm and strong. That didn't quell the raging inferno swirling inside him, however. "My liege," Morris asked, taken aback. "Go Ference has nothing to gain by lying to me." "No, I'm afraid that what he sent us is, except for that boarding recording, the reality we must face," Cornelius said firmly. "The video of that carnage already propagating through the wide network is most certainly my niece's handiwork. I would be ignorant to believe that the actions of this Wyatt Staples are not embellished in any way. How much so? I fear that the alterations may be minimal," he said, and took that moment to glance to his right where his daughter stood. Unlike him, Veronica made no attempt to hide the rage blazing within her as the flames reflected in her eyes. It filled him with guilt and worry to see her like that, but there was nothing he could do, not now. Putting his feelings aside, he continued, "Rodo, I'm certain you're relieved to hear that your nephew is alive and well." Rodrigo clenched his jaw for a brief second before answering, "My Lord Regent, I promise you Javier will be punished for his blunder as he should." "Cowards deserve no mercy or consideration," Veronica proclaimed with indignation. "Veronica," Cornelius spoke her name with a heaviness that made her flinch and back down instantly. "I'm sorry, my Lord Father. I did not mean to offend you," Veronica said in a genuinely apologetic tone. Exhaling through his nose, Cornelius returned his attention to Rodrigo. "Do not punish the boy too harshly, Rodrigo. Reassure your brother Esteban that my anger is not directed at Javier. Punish him within reason, understood." "I will tell my lord brother to stay his hand as you command, my Lord Regent. Your mercy shall be remembered, though perhaps, if you'll allow me the opportunity to question your reasoning," Rodrigo asked curiously, his intense yellow eyes searching for an answer. "Javier isn't a warrior or a soldier, much less a knight. His cowardice is shameful but understandable. What was he to do in that situation? His great fault is that his mutinous actions, justified as they were given the circumstances, allowed that man to board unchallenged and carve a bloody trail of his own making." Cornelius hummed deeply. "The boy suffered greatly on the planet as it is." "Be kind to him, my Lord Regent," Rodrigo replied, bowing his head. Turning from the Wonder representative, his gaze landed on the ancient Tamaran Ken. "It would seem that tragedy haunts your lineage, Tamaran, as it has struck your house again. My sympathies." Tamaran shook his head. "Casemere's fate was thankfully reduced to mere trauma, pain, and wounds that can be healed, my Lord Regent." "Your callousness never ceases to sicken me, Tamaran," Hadrian commented, eyes narrowed. "How many deaths has your house endured? 5, 8, a dozen more." "Death is regrettable, and it wounds my heart terribly, Tigan," Tamar countered weakly. "House Ken is blessed with bountiful numbers and branch houses to secure our lineage. Sacrifices are expected in the line of duty, are they not?" The old man glared at Hadrian for several moments before continuing. "Casemere is alive. That is enough recompense for me. My heart burns with outrage and indignation to know that the Samuel's glory now finds itself with a new ugly name, however. Novio was the dullard who came up with that name. It matters not at the present moment, Tamaran. I need options and a course of action to reply to this travesty," Cornelius declared, forcing everyone to regain their composure. "My niece has struck us with the most terrible blow, a blow that came to be possible thanks to Felicity's reckless actions. I have no doubt in my mind that her ego and desire to prove herself superior to Clara drove her forward. Try to contain this debacle, and have your intelligence agents and operatives work on downplaying the victories achieved on HGO, all of them," Cornelius ordered. "My Lord Regent," It shall be done as you command." "My lord understood," Lord Cornelius replied. Rodrigo, Morris, and Tamaran ended their connection. Once their screens showed nothing but blackness, the Duke stood up slowly and quietly placed a hand on his now vacant seat. Hadrian and Veronica stared in silence, waiting to see what he would do next. Out of every reaction they were expecting, a smile followed by a throaty chuckle was not among them. "Father," Veronica asked, worried and confused. "Waddy Staples?" Cornelius said, eyes narrowing. "That name again. First, this compost hauler finds himself in a convenient spot that allowed him to rescue the royal favor and save the lives of Clara, Cynthia, and Redford in one unconventional and unlikely fell swoop," he said as his lips curled into a subtle smirk. "Then he proves himself again as a deadly pilot at Gintra. I wonder how deep his contributions really go during that conflict," he mused, turning to Hadrian. "And now not only does he manage to score an outstanding victory whilst being heavily outnumbered. Oh no, this commoner turned knight Brett tricks a lone wolf, acting himself as bait, and then boards a ship by himself, no less, and carves a bloody path on the way to his objective. Not a mindless murderer, rather a cold killer who understands what honor is. Quite a puzzling question, paradoxical some would claim." His smirk turned into a smile. "My niece has found herself a most interesting and peculiar weapon, one she is keen to make use of most excellently." Another chuckle escaped his throat. "I would like to meet this Wyatt Staples." "My lord, surely you jest?" Hadrian questioned, perplexed. "We've seen what that foul creature can achieve. You would meet with such a lowly beast." "Why wouldn't I wish to meet with such a man when fate smiles upon him like a doting mother?" Cornelius countered calmly. "My lord father, I share Lord Hadrian's concerns. This Wyatt Staples could be an agent, a royal marine in disguise, or something far more insidious at play," Veronica reasoned. "I won't deny the possibility of such things being a reality. Nevertheless, sometimes the most obvious and simple answer is the one holding the truth," Cornelius said, letting go of his chair and turning to Hadrian. "Hadrian, I ask for much, but I will need you to accompany me." Hadrian bowed his head respectfully. "Has my lord decided upon a course of action?" Turning to his daughter, Cornelius continued, "Veronica, see to it that the rightful honor is prepared to leave dock in 6 hours. Count Gino was gracious enough to provide a diplomatic convoy to transport our survivors from the HGO disaster to us. I shall return the gesture in kind. We will depart for Morning Star. I shall request Gino to divert his convoy, for I will receive them personally there. Morris Ishtal will be beyond pleased to serve as host for you on his capital world, my liege," Haddon proclaimed eagerly. "It will be my honor to stand at your side, my Lord Regent." Veronica's posture shifted to one of pride and delight. She saluted, then bowed deeply before her father. "I'll have the ship prepared to your standards, Lord Father," she proclaimed, and as she regained her stance, she saw her father making his way to her. She stood there, unflinching and waiting for his arrival. He stopped right in front of her, touching her cheek and staring at her with those strong green eyes filled with nothing but love, compassion, and kindness. Then she felt her father's hand caress her head, his fingers traveling slowly until they danced through her braids. "Go, my daughter," Cornelius said in a soft voice barely stronger than a whisper. "And once your task is completed, prepare yourself. You will come with me too." Veronica, it was all she needed to hear. "At once, Lord Father," she proclaimed as her father retrieved his hand and she took a step back. She put on her helmet, bowed again, and left to make the necessary preparations for her father's departure. Upon leaving the room, the fervor in her heart increased with the desire to be of use to her magnificent father. As she walked, a simple command brought a small projection inside her visor. The reports and evidence sent by Count Ganak were necessary, but it was the rising coverage that infuriated her beyond measure. 2 well-dressed announcers appeared on the projection, smiling charming, disarming, convincing smiles that she found sickening. Regardless, she listened closely. "Welcome again to Fenty's Grand Informant. Today marks a great day for House Ference, wouldn't you agree, Zelina?" the man proclaimed. "Undoubtedly, Joel. However, I dare say that this day marks a great victory for the Atorian Principality as a whole," the woman countered enthusiastically. "Over the past months, Drowsen raiding fleets were spotted across several star systems, across a dozen territories. The dreaded Xenos assaulted several stations and isolated small habitats during their rampage. According to the reports graciously provided by Her Majesty, the second Princess Clera Adur, Several Drazen ships arrived at the fallen system Hastengrung as the Pirate Syndicate. The Sons of Darkness and the leaders of the rebellious upstarts of Higo managed to form a fragile alliance with the Xenos. Joel let out a condescending chuckle. An alliance that shattered at the first sign of difficulty. We've also received reports that the incursion that happened on Jin Trax was their doing, repelled by our liege in a show of valiant courage and power. The announcer paused for a moment, only to turn to another camera for a new angle. How was this possible, you may be asking yourselves? Classified information has been denied to us due to security reasons, but what was disclosed has perplexed our staff. Her Majesty, Princess Clara, was present at Balakura to carry out diplomatic talks concerning the current succession dispute between our liege, the Prince, and Duke Dreyer. Our Lord Count Gino Ference revealed during these talks the Drazen incursions and the danger they posed. The entourage led by Lady Felicity Centaur refused to bring forth aid unless House Fence recognized the Duke's claim as legitimate, revealed Zelina. Lord Gannock refused this extortionist deal and turned to the Princess for support. Her Majesty, the Princess, respecting our Lord's position of neutrality, agreed to destroy the Drazen threat and liberate Haystrung without forcing our Lord to bend the knee against his will. A true show of magnanimity, wouldn't you agree, Zelina? Joel asked. Veronica narrowed her eyes as anger swelled in her chest again. She wasn't a savvy diplomat. She had no patience for such things, but she could see her cousin's hands moving the strings, oh so subtly, to smear her father further and elevate herself in the process. But she couldn't completely hate Clara alone for that. No, Clara had taken advantage of the situation, one that Felicity Center would manage to morph into something so much, much worse. Beauty and brilliance are apt descriptors for our beloved second princess, Zelina agreed. What is most outstanding, however, is that Princess Clara utilized her personal flagship named Noir Navio to carry this assault against an unknown enemy force. Thanks to the records provided, the Drazen turned on their once allies, destroying them wholesale in space before launching an orbital assault and then a ground invasion on the planet Higo. In battle, Her Majesty stepped back wisely, allowing Lord Mark Commander Redford Kalin to take overall command of her ship, the Noravio. During this battle, now dubbed the Haystrung campaign, Commander Kalin had to combat against 3 cruisers, 11 destroyers, 6 frigates, and a contingent of over 1,000 fighters mixed with bombers and gunships, and most terrifyingly of all, a cattle ship, Joel delivered in a serious and slightly unbelieving tone. Though the use of cunning tactics and superior strategic acumen, Commander Kalin managed to whittle down enemy forces in controlled engagements, rather than face the brunt of their strength all at once. Veronica glared at the video, forcing it to skip the commentary over the battle itself, with limited footage and a tactical map doing most of the work, until she reached the part that boiled her blood with rage. Victory was near but not yet claimed. Against all odds, Commander Kalin proved himself superior, Zelina exclaimed with mild agitation. Her professionalism had faltered in the face of what could only be described as an outstanding victory for the Principality. Yet it is at this moment that the forces led by Felicity Centaur made themselves known, Joel said in the same state as his companion. Only once a single destroyer and frigate managed to escape the onslaught, Felicity made her intentions known to capture Princess Clara if possible, or destroy her and her ship. Now, we've been reliably informed that Felicity Centaur acted on her own accord and without consulting her superiors. Despite suffering losses, she pressed forward. Again, we must reiterate that she acted on her own volition. However, many doubt that this is true. Duke Dra has launched a coup against his nephew, the prince. Would it be hard to believe that she acted on his orders to eliminate another obstacle to his claim? Zelina scoffed. There are only possibilities. Felicity Center acted on her own or was given orders. The silent insults didn't need to be spoken. They were understood perfectly, and it made Veronica's blood boil. The latter painted her father as cruel, ruthless, and petty, but that at least could be excused. In a fallen system, conflict demanded that sacrifices be made to achieve victory. She knew her Lord Father was a man of honor, virtue, magnanimity, and wisdom. Her father was a flawless man and worthy of not only loyalty and respect, but also adoration and devotion. And that made a mockery of him, she hissed angrily, her teeth clenched so hard it made her gums ache. Yes, the latter was a bad outcome, but the former was so much worse because it painted her father as an incompetent buffoon incapable of controlling his subordinates. And yet somehow, she managed to do worse. Veronica watched closely as the boarding of the gallant venture, regardless of the circumstances that allowed it to happen. It was still impressive that a single man was able to subdue the light destroyer all by himself. There were little telltales, however, in every encounter that told a story that very few would be able to see. It didn't make itself evident until the duel with Captain Crow Ortega. There the blonde woman muttered, "Evade, shift, pivot, evade, lunge, break guard, evade, shift," she said with every movement made. His style was inconsistent, but the fundamentals were solid. "You've been training that one, Cynthia," she said with mild amusement. The video continued until Casimir Ken, that weak-quilled coward, broke and Felicity was captured. She skipped over pointless commentary and stopped once Redford's face appeared on screen. "Traitor, betrayer, liar, disgrace," she cursed at the man bitterly. His lordship Count Istinal Fence, who was also present as an observer, was kind enough to convince Commander Kalen to entertain a brief conversation to answer some questions regarding significant events that happened during the Haystong campaign. "Commander," a reporter's voice was heard unseen as the interview was happening through a video call. "Is it true that a lone wolf was present and killed in battle?" "Defeated in battle is more apt," Redford answered. "Maximilian Yuzuzurk is currently Her Majesty's guest after his defeat at the hands of our elite fighter squadron, the Composters." "Remarkable. How were you able to achieve such a victory over the Roaring Thunder? Secondly, is he injured?" asked the reporter. "This victory is not mine to claim. The Composters, as stated earlier, were the ones who defeated him. I had no input during their battle. To answer your second question, Maximilian Yuzuzurk suffered minor wounds that were treated accordingly," answered Redford. "Most humble of you to think that, Commander. I'm certain many fans will rejoice to hear the news," the reporter exclaimed. "Now, is it true that Her Majesty, Princess Clara, managed to placate the insurgents, quell the criminals, and establish a new provisional government on HGO under her supervision as mediator? Further details regarding those diplomatic talks shall be disclosed under the authority of House Fence in due time," Redford answered before his expression softened, and the hint of a smile spread on his lips. "All I can say is that Higo and the Haystong system fall once more under the purview and protection of House Fence by the will of Princess Clara Astor. This is a tremendous victory that the entire principality can rejoice in." "Thank you for your time, Commander Kalen," the reporter finished. Commander Kalen's words rang true, as it was later confirmed that humanitarian and relief efforts are being organized to alleviate HGO and allow reconstruction programs to begin. A provisional government agreement shall remain for 5 years. Upon its conclusion, new minor and lesser houses shall be established on Higo, loyal to House Fence, Joel announced. "And as a final note, the man who stormed the gallant venture by himself, Wyatt Staples, has been elevated to the title of Baron by the will of His Grace, the Prince, after his exemplary performance. Stay tuned for more news as the situation develops here at Fenty's Grand Informant. For the Principality, loyalty is its own reward," Zelina exclaimed. "Now more than ever," Joel added before the video ended. Veronica dismissed it and instead summoned a picture of a rather dull-looking, bored, and slightly disheveled Wyatt Staples, an outdated picture sent by Jade months prior. His eyes appeared brown in the picture, but the footage of his eyes showed a different color. They were presented as heterochromatic. It didn't really matter to her. Veronica smiled almost hungrily, her eyes focused on the picture with predatory intent. "My Lord Father has taken an interest in you, Wyatt Staples. Perhaps you may be of use to him," she said without anger. If her father didn't hold malice toward him, then she wouldn't either. I wonder," she muttered before dismissing the photo altogether. She had a ship to prepare for the glory of her father's will.